So, the hot talk about if Halle Bailey should have had a baby or not has kicked up again, especially in light of this restraining order that she was granted against DDG. And it will continue to because all of this is tied into serious community anxieties around a Black woman's worth and her purity. But let us be clear, Halle Bailey has always been and continues to be fully deserving of all protection, care, and consideration. Judging her need for restraining orders or what she chooses to do with her life, it's part of a long tradition of taking autonomy out of Black women's hands. It also has a way of taking someone who has been clearly victimized and making it about some moral failing on their part. Now, that's ridiculous, but because it's tied into white supremacy, it's taken root. There's this common misconception that among the diverse diaspora of Black communities in America, that there is this lack of engagement with the purity culture that we've seen in evangelical or white Protestant circles. It's not that there isn't a relationship, it's just that there's a different one. And it has to do with the fact that motherhood and marriage has been withheld from generations of Black women in this country. Now, a lot of the chatter that you see online about Halle has been shrouded in this idea of we're just trying to protect her. People wanted to see their Disney princess married with a big rock on her finger in a mansion. They wanted to see a whole fairy tale play out before she had a baby. People had this idea of this exceptionally talented and beautiful Black girl building an empire, then being courted and cared for by like some prince of pop entertainment too. Halle being a single mom, even by her choice, is triggering. Because in some people's minds, she has not broken what feels like a generational curse, but she has affirmed it. So why does it sting, and why is it not framed in society as an independent choice? Like, she has her own money, she has her own time, she's clearly okay. Because none of us make choices in a vacuum, and our socialization helps us filter what a woman is worth based off of her choices. Contrary to popular belief, purity is not scorned in the Black community. It is something that was slowly weaponized from the mid-1700s on, thanks to a breakout star and writer Harriet Jacobs. Shyly but courageously, Harriet Jacobs did something that no one had seen before. She was the first Black woman, believed to be the first Black woman in America, to pen this story about herself, and she articulated the kind of sexual complicated relationship she had had with people and the shame and the damage she had felt that had done to her as a Black woman in the society, how her lack of choices had hampered her life. She articulated the silent suffering of Black women all across America and how they were used and discarded. This was a game changer because up to this point, purity was for white women. And especially white women who had men who were connected to money and power. If you were a poor white woman or a lower class white woman and something happened to you, good luck. These women were protected and avenged from male assault. It was not considered a normal, okay thing. It was something that could get the whole town going. Ironically, Harriet Jacobs wanted the very thing most people are trying to recover from now, a purity ideology. This specific purity ideology would protect the spiritual and physical inner lives of Black women, which to that point had not been. Harriet Jacobs and the Quakers and the abolitionists she worked with figured that if they could get people to apply this purity ideology to Black women, they could actually start defending them. They could start seeing them as more than mere chattel. They wanted to give Black women bodily autonomy. In the current caste system, if Black women could become ladies, they could have protection. I'm skipping over a lot of history, but you can start to understand why having babies outside of marriage, land, a certain kind of protective contract can be a source of tension and grief in the wide diaspora of Black communities in America, because for so long, those very things were withheld from us. Or in the 50s or you could even look at like the 20s and the 30s, when Black women and their husbands tried to have these things, they were attacked for it. Why? Because we were deemed not good enough. Not good enough for that love story, not good enough for that house, not good enough for the social and legal protections of a marriage in a society that places married people higher in the caste system. While people can believe that a woman's worth and value is not dependent on her having children or her marital status, they can still be very aware that there is an ongoing social and legal bias towards women who do those things or have those things. Our socialization and prejudice stories, because at the end of the day, socialization is just about the internalized ideologies and beliefs you have about yourself or other people, is that Black women are not princesses. Part of our socialization comes out of policy that intentionally fragmented Black families and said, nope, you're not going to have this unit. You're not going to have this kind of generational wealth. There's a reason this particular framework of Black love with its steps is celebrated and it's enjoyed and it's loved, and people know it has a target on its back. It always has. When people look at the opportunities Halle has or had, they see someone who could scale a caste system in a way most people can't. Someone who could win by society's idea of a good woman, and who in their mind was actually worth everything that has been withheld from Black women. So in this parasocial way, there's this personal disappointment that people take at her taking this non-traditional path, which ironically many people saw as a very traditional path that they wanted her to break from. People had this expectation for a woman they did not know because they wanted her choices to affirm something. They wanted the most coveted social spot in America to be occupied by this woman. People wanted this for Halle in the same way Harriet Jacobs wanted purity ideology to apply to Black women. Granted, there are real social, political benefits from guarding your time, being careful about your career, looking at who you partner up with, deciding if you have children or not have children. That's why it is so critical that Black women in this country have the ability to make economic, financial, social, and political choices about what they do with their time, especially time that has for generations been considered everybody else's. There's not an issue in promoting that. But the icky part is that when we start to marry women's actual inherent value and worth to this social status, to think that someone's inherent God-given worth rises or falls based on what somebody does to them, that we think that social strategizing and positioning put a woman's worth, a Black woman's worth, back on the negotiating table. That has never ended well for us. And as people are saying, Halle, Cassie, all these other women, they might never hear what you say about them as people who have survived domestic violence or people who have made certain choices that you might not make for yourself, but other people in your life, they will. Is your ranking system more about the people made in the image of God, or is it in line with what white supremacy has historically said about Black bodies? I was pleased to see Essence send their blessing and their love to Halle this week, including Cassie. And I hope that as we unpack this history later in this week, we can be a little bit more aware of where we get the ideas we get and why we feel the way we feel. So in all your internet conversations about this, remember to hold fast to the never changing worth of all your sisters.